Welcome back to the Ripewave audio community, where we explore together all types of home audio systems from hi-fi to home theater. My name is John, and for this video we will continue our top AV processor separates between $5,000 and $10,000 series, which support immersive audio formats for at least 12 channels. For part 6, we compare the interfaces these processors provide for configuration and playback. If you missed part 1, where we outline the main criteria for channels, format support, and room calibration, or part 2, where we examine the DACS these processors utilize, or part 3, where we describe the connectivity from Ethernet to Internet streaming features, or part 4, when we explored the physical aspects, or part 5, where we looked at the I/O each model includes. I have provided the links for your convenience in the description. For those that viewed the other parts of this series, you are aware that we are researching AV processors, so Ripewave Audio can make a more educated decision when we replace our 5.1 channel Sony TAE 9000ES processor with a new Immersive processor. We selected a list of processors we are examining from a filtered down set from 160 models, 27 brands from the Ripewave Audio database. By setting the criteria for models which are still actively promoted on the brand websites between $5,000 and $10,000, processor separates, non-receivers, and immersive, the pool of candidates dropped to 8 models from 7 brands: Acurus, Anthem, AudioControl, JBL Synthesis, Lygndorf, McIntosh, and NAD. With the focus of part 1 on the number of channels, formats, and supported room calibration software, the Anthem AVM 90 came out as the first round pick. In part 2, the DACS, we selected the Acurus Muse for that processor's overall 110 dB signal-to-noise rating and use of differential circuitry for the first 4 channels. In part 3, the Anthem AVM 90 was selected again for its support of eARC, Dolby Vision, IMAX Enhance, lots of claimed integration support, and ecosystems. In part 4, we called it a draw, with each processor having its own audience and merits. In the last part, we picked the AudioControl Maestro X7 and X9 for their comprehensive I/O, including the oddly hard-to-find quarter-inch 3.5mm headphone jack and FM/AM tuner. We have one update from last week. Thomas pointed out that the McIntosh MX123 does support eARC, and the McIntosh website and brochure has been updated to reflect that addition. I downloaded the manual again, but that resource has yet to be updated to include eARC, so it pays to review all materials a vendor has to offer. Home Automation Geek kindly noted that we had missed covering the Dante I/O feature set of the JBL Synthesis SDP-55. Now, developed in 2006, Dante is an uncompressed, multi-channel digital media networking technology which is designed for low latency to ensure synchronization. This interface supports 18 channels, which is comprised of 16 process channels and 2 zone channels, and delivers the signal over standard Cat5e or Cat6 cabling directly to amplifiers anywhere in your home. This ecosystem was developed for the pro audio market. While the JBL Synthesis portfolio is the only range we have seen under $10,000 that supports Dante, it is possible to purchase Dante to analog converters for under $200, with third parties supporting the professional market. The interfaces we are reviewing in this part are the human interfaces. These will include the built-in front panel displays on the units, as well as those that require an external display, such as a television, computer, or mobile device. On-screen displays either take over the whole screen or overlay text and graphics on top of the video signal. Computer and mobile devices can either display a web page from the processor or run a dedicated application to provide the interface. Let's take a quick look at company size as we did in Part 6 of the under $5,000 series. A few parents return at this range of price, so the data for Harman-owned JBL Synthesis and AudioControl brands remains the same and is the only $1 billion plus brand in this pricing tier. No parent company falls into the over $100 million range, but the Lygndorf Group with NAD, Paradigm with Anthem, and McIntosh Group with, of course, McIntosh, are large enough to be considered medium-sized companies with over $20 million of annual revenue. Lygndorf and Indie Audio Labs, with their Acurus brand, are the smaller companies in this group. While we believe we have the relative positioning of each parent company correct, estimated financial data from analysts for private companies is varied and can only be used as a guide. When comparing the user interfaces, we looked at configuration and playback features. As this is not a hands-on review, we're going by the supplied photos and documentation. As before, our research did take some time and some details are still hard to locate. Let's start in with NAD. The NAD M17v2i is the first of two models which employ a touch screen. It appears that NAD enables some basic configuration using this front panel, a located screen, along with the general playback controls. As the volume knob serves as the only physical input on the M17, all other functions they permit from the unit are provided by this touchscreen. For additional functions, NAD provides an on-screen display, including deeper configuration items such as speaker configuration. There is no mention of a web interface, but mobile devices can communicate via their Blue OS ecosystem, which the M17 supports, with an optional wireless adapter. Room calibration is using the standard DACS interface, which runs on a separate Windows or Mac computer. DACS also has a mobile application. The Lyngdorf MP-40 provides a multi-line LCD display on the front panel for standard playback status details. User input is limited to source selection and volume knobs. Configuration is handled by either an on-screen display or web page, which have a clean, modern presentation and includes graphical elements for speaker placement. The images of the perfect room calibration solution we could find depict a very basic step through of what appears to be a behind-the-scenes process. Perhaps someone on this community could weigh in on how interactive the room-perfect solution really is and whether or not measurement data is presented to the operator. While the manual notes that the MP-40 provides on-screen messages which are configurable, no details are given. We found the Lygndorf manual to be light on details in general. Another example is on the mobile device streaming support it mentions. From the manual, we can only glean how a streaming player can control volume, input source, and power. The McIntosh MX123 is equipped with their classic front panel adorned with the simplistic two-line LCD dot matrix display with additional status information such as sound modes with fixed position indicators which become visible when those conditions are active. While that approach doesn't afford changes via a software update, we do find that method easier to read than most color LCD screen implementations. From the front panel, the user is able to adjust playback settings. The configuration menus are accessed from either an on-screen display or web page. The on-screen pop-up display for playback status provides details such as volume level, input source, and now playing information, and can be positioned to your preference. McIntosh supports streaming to their processor and provides their own apps which tastefully applies the design language of their physical components. The implementation of Odyssey appears to be standard and is incorporated into the configuration pages of the on-screen display and web pages used for configuration. Acurus Muse has by far our favorite front panel display. It is large, color, and is high resolution. It is also a touchscreen, and the infographics are super intuitive and is the best we have encountered. This is how a modern interactive display should be executed. While our main concern is the lack of a physical volume knob, Acurus makes up for that deficiency by getting everything else right. As said in the previous video, the Acurus AC4 addresses that gap very nicely if we're willing to move to a higher price point. As we like the Acurus display so much, we are going to show a few more samples of what it can present and provide control over. The speaker layout is shown graphically. The format indicators display the logos of those technologies, which is a nice touch, and the input number is displayed. The color coding helps with navigation, with the settings buttons encircled in orange and a network button encircled in green. When selecting inputs, each row is represented by an icon which represents the input type, HDMI, digital, or analog. The active selection is encircled with blue, as with the sound modes, and they provide on-the-fly adjustments to sound parameters such as DTS:X dialogue control. This touchscreen is used also to configure the Muse for loudspeaker and equalization settings and to perform firmware updates. The Muse has a web server for diagnostics and setup, but details on its use are not given. The Acurus Aspect Room Calibration System is available to integrators, which is not something that is typically purchased and left with the homeowner. As you can see from the photo, it is a full kit which employs multiple microphones. The JBL Synthesis SDP-55 uses a display similar to that found in all Harman branded models. It appears to be a monochromatic screen that displays the status and reflects the actions issued by the remote or one of the 10 front panel buttons, which determines the mode or handles menu navigation. Through the extended front panel menu, you have access to basic configuration in addition to playback settings, and includes restoring from defaults or backup, updating firmware, and setting region, etc. More detailed configuration is handled by an on-screen display or web page, which appears to be derived from the Anthem AV40. Pop-up on-screen messages are said to be delivered, but the manual does not cover the details of what is displayed on screen. The DACS implementation is believed to be the same as well, and like other processors which utilize DACS, the calibration software must be run on a separate Windows or Mac computer. The AudioControl Maestro X7 and X9 appear to be a copy of the JBL Synthesis model, but with the buttons repositioned to align with the audio control aesthetic. Like the JBL model, the X7 and X9 have an on-screen display and web page for detailed configuration. Once again, the standard Harman no-frills menu pages are presented, and once again, the same Windows Mac hosted DiRAC software is used for calibration, albeit with the AudioControl logo inserted. The Anthem AVM 90 story for user interfaces matches that of the AVM 70, which is half the cost. The front panel is exactly the same. As noted earlier, the Anthem displays in these models are not as elegant as those presented in the marketing photos. There is a slightly illuminated black background, and the fonts are not as polished as published on the Anthem website. The amount of details presented is minimal to favor larger fonts and clarity. The AVM series menus are on screen and cleanly presented, a step up from the Harman menus. Anthem's Arc Genesis room calibration software runs on a separate computer like DiRAC. Arc Genesis is also like DiRAC in that it steps the operator through the process using graphical elements. Anthem provides a mobile version of the tool as well. Anthem is unique as it provides the ability not only to customize the pop-up on-screen messages, but it also provides customization for a second zone. Anthem provides a mobile app as well for basic playback control, which provides an alternate to the supplied remote control. The mobile app is good for when line of sight is not possible with the standard IR remote. Before we look at all the models together in a table view, let's bring up the sub 5000 table first for comparison. From a functional standpoint, the prior series delivers a similar experience, albeit the design of the Yamaha and Marantz models include a door to conceal most of the buttons, and with the Marantz, the door also conceals the primary display. None of the lower cost models include a touchscreen. Support for mobile apps is also spotty. Looking now at models between $5,000 and $10,000, we see the same user interfaces from Harman all the way up to the $9,600 Maestro X9. And it's the same as what we saw in the Lexicon model, which was $3,500, which would be fine if that design, that standard design, was more inspiring, but it's not. The McIntosh MX123 models are a bit different from that of the MX100. While they both implement a Macintosh style, the MX123 appears to be developed by a different group. DiRAC presents itself the same regardless of brand and price point, as long as the same software revision is being used. We believe that some brands are showing older screenshots in their literature, and it's unclear if the newer versions of DiRAC are supported. There is still something appealing about the Macintosh front panel display despite being stuck in the last century. McIntosh and Lygndorf are similar with their room calibration software, as they are the only models with the software integrated into the processor and presented within the processor's on-screen display or web page. The Acurus Muse stands apart for two reasons. First, the Aspect room calibration software is intended only for the custom integrator to drive, albeit you can purchase if that cost is not too steep for you. The other is the beautifully executed touchscreen interface, which helps you forget that there is not a volume knob physically. While the NAD M17v2i also has a touchscreen, and it's nice, NAD didn't execute at the same level as Acurus. Our pick for the best user interface goes to Acurus Muse. We are just so excited that they took the time to think through a modern approach to a processor's front panel interface that we will award this round to them. Despite them earning this round, they have two gaps which make it difficult for us to select their product for our own system. We want a volume knob, and we want to be able to run the calibration software on our own without calling in a professional each time we want to make a change to the system. Therefore, it is only fitting that we select a runners-up for this round, which would be acceptable for our long-term use, and that model is the McIntosh MX123. Both functionally and aesthetically, the MX123 works for us. Its timeless design ensures that we will appreciate it for years to come, and their embracing of modern solutions for playback with their mobile apps and configuration using a web page has our attention. If you are in the market for an AV processor, how important are the user interfaces to you? Is it necessary to have the controls on the front panel, or are you running the processor entirely from an integration platform? What are your thoughts on having a touchscreen on the processor? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave audio community. Furthermore, if you enjoyed this video and are interested in enhancing your audio experience, please like and subscribe to this Ripewave audio community, and be sure to select the bell icon so you'll be notified as soon as the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.